Hey guys, it's David and Ryan here. David, this is a new episode type we're going to do, and it's not related
show
to
type.
Bankless
Yeah,
at
not
all.
an episode, show. Yeah.
It's a show. It's not related to Bankless at all. This is an occasional show we're calling Full Disclosure, and we're only releasing this on YouTube. It's for projects that we love, that we are advisors on. We're firewalling this from all of the regular Bankless content because this is more biased, David.
Yes, this is
Full
biased.
disclosure, we have bags in the project we're about to talk about.
Advisors or just things that we're bullish on, the things that we have biases towards that we want to elaborate on because we're excited about them. And like the title suggests, full disclosure, that's kind of the whole vibe.
Yeah, I mean, we're bullish. We think they're going to win. We're advisors for this project. If you think
Interested in their success.
We're interested in their success. If you think that utterly biases us and makes the opinions you're about to hear worthless, then stop listening.
Yep.
You know, just full disclosure.
Yep.
We're excited about this project. And the first one we're going to talk about is Tracer. Oh, by the way, I should let folks know, we have a list of all of the Bankless disclosures. Actually, we'll include a link to the show notes. So if you want to see where we're advisors, projects we're working on, that sort of thing, this is updated on a monthly basis.
Things that we have more than 5% of our aggregate portfolio in as well.
ETH. Full disclosure, I'm an ETH bull too, David.
I'm just shocked.
Let's talk about Tracer. So Tracer is this really cool project that we've been involved in over the last 6 months, and it's really cool to see this getting built out. What's the TLDR of Tracer, David?
Yeah, Tracer is, my mental model for it is stability products. The world is very chaotic, and we can actually, using finance, help the world become less chaotic using stability tools. And this isn't new to DeFi. This isn't new to the world of finance. We've had stability and risk tools as far as finance goes back. Finance is basically one gigantic industry
risk management game
of risk management, right? And Tracer is tackling that task head on using specific types of contracts that help people manage risk across DeFi. And so we'll go into what that means. But there are a number of different aspects about Tracer. First off, what its products are super cool. How it got started is interesting and compelling. And just really the ability of the team to execute is also, there are many different things that really get us excited about Tracer, and they've kind of checked the box on every single one. So that I have some mental models about how to compare Tracer to pre-existing patterns. I don't know if we're ready to go into that already or not.
I want to do my attempt at the TLDR of this project because it's new and emerging, and then maybe we should talk about after that just how we got introduced to the project, how it got on our radar.
Yeah.
But my mental model for this is like, so yes, stability. Even more concretely, this is like all about derivatives. So Tracer to me is the Uniswap of derivatives. And the other thing I like about it is it's deployed on layer 2. So derivatives markets never really worked on layer 1, like DYDX. They shifted to layer 2. And so this is all on layer 2. This is Arbitrum. And the idea of like derivatives is you take an oracle and you take a collateral and you can create anything, a synthetic of anything, a long or short, any asset. And that's what they're doing. So from my mental model, the reason I'm bullish is like, how big did DYDX get? I mean, pretty damn big. And I actually think, and I think you do as well, that Tracer could be bigger than that. Because it's like DYDX is DeFi's answer to BitMEX, but I feel like Tracer is DeFi's answer to Uniswap from a derivatives perspective. This is like the Uniswap for derivatives. So if that teases your interest, then continue listening.
I mean, everyone knows that DYDX is like the absolute leader in perpetuals and derivative products on their own specific layer 2, and they're not. Tracer isn't like a direct competitor with DYDX. It's in my mind like an evolution. And where DYDX is it's kind of siloed inside of its own layer 2, Tracer is on Arbitrum, which is composable with the rest of DeFi, and it has a little bit more just openness and permissionlessness than DYDX does. DYDX is meeting people where they're used to.
It's order book, right?
Order book, centralized order book, feels like a centralized exchange with layer 2 assurances, which we love. But Tracer is more DeFi native, DeFi composable, and DeFi integratable. And that's kind of where this open and permissionlessness ethos of crypto really gets baked into Tracer. Before we go further down that rabbit hole, though, which we definitely will, we should talk about how we actually came to meet the TracerDAO team. Right, how did we meet the TracerDAO team?
Yeah, so one of the founders of Tracer reached out to us. AJ is his name, and he just basically said, "Hey guys, aligned with the bankless ethos, we're building something cool. You guys should come take a look." And what's cool is because like we get, people saying these sorts of things all of the time. Right. What was cool for me, David, is like they actually had a project, like a product. It was on Arbitrum, on the Arbitrum testnet, and I could go test it out. And so we tested it out. It was incredible.
You
right?
could actually do things like most people that show up in our DM saying, "Hey, you want to help us grow this project?"
White paper.
Like they have like a website and a white paper. Yeah.
Yes.
Like no, we're not ready for that.
This was a fully formed product that we could actually try. And so and then they released very early on Arbitrum mainnet, like September or something. They were one of the first projects in Arbitrum mainnet and wanted to try layer 2 as well. And so I went long ETH, 3x long ETH, some of their products and tried it out, and it worked. So it's really cool to see that working. The trade did not work, okay? At that point in time in September. But the product worked, and it was really cool to see. It was permissionless. And then we got to know their team over time and saw the roadmap of what they're building, that this is just V1, and they have tons of things in V2, and wanted to plug right into that. I think you've got a story here, too, about Tracer, because they started as a DAO-first organization, which is also unique, right? A lot of DeFi projects, they don't start DAO first. They start kind of very centralized. There's no decentralized governance. And then they later try to convert across the chasm into DAO. Not with Tracer. They started like DAO native. And I think you had them on a Meet the Nation episode fairly early too, right?
Yeah, and this is actually why I love the Meet the Nations episode, is because it's me simultaneously making content while also doing my own due diligence. And so I had on Pat from the Tracer team on to talk about the genesis of Tracer, what Tracer is, the genesis of Tracer. So that's actually a great video to learn more about Tracer. We'll have that linked in the show notes. The genesis of Tracer is really, really cool, where they knew they had a vision, they had goals, and those goals were to help the world, help the risk of the world be managed. And so they were actually, I think, really not trying to make this a crypto thing. They just saw crypto as like, oh, this is going to make our lives easier if we do it this way. And so they had a goal of making derivative products available to everyone. And they're using crypto to get that done. And they realized that there are certain limitations and certain challenges of starting centralized and going decentralized. And so they decided to go just the full DAO route from day one. And they did this very clever thing where they really just opened up the ability to become like initiating DAO member. And they didn't start the DAO until they had enough people on board with that, of which they did not know. So it was basically like a word of mouth link sharing phenomenon of like, hey, there's this Tracer derivatives project. The team is extremely experienced, but not many people in the crypto know them. Click this link to learn more. And then also you can become like a Genesis member of the Tracer DAO by participating in this early round. And so that link just got shared organically through some nooks and crannies of the internet of the people that discuss and care about these things. And the link got out, it was purposely out of the hands of the Tracer organization. So it kind of took on a life of its own. And I guess enough people accepted the call to join the DAO that the DAO got spun up in a distributed unknown entity, unknown participation type fashion, where like they actually, some of the originating members don't actually know who the other members are, which is really important for decentralization. Like if you don't know who are the other members of your org, like that it kind of is a very strong test of decentralization. Granted, now that entire organization is now inside of one Discord coordinating with each other. But the genesis of this whole thing, I thought, was a very interesting experiment that I haven't seen run before. And I hope it actually acts as a model to how to start a DAO by organically finding people that are actually interested in your DAO for the right reasons, rather than just being like, oh, I'll get in early on this thing and then sell the tokens later. No, they did a very good job with bootstrapping this thing. So watch that Meet the Nation video to learn more.
Let's pop the hood on this thing and talk about a little bit why we're bullish. Maybe I should just share the screen of the user interface right now and the products that are in place. So what we're looking at is the Perpetual Pools product on Tracer. This is Tracer V1. And so you can see here, if you want to go 3x long or short on Bitcoin, it's just a simple mint away. And then you hold that token, the 3x long token or 3x short token, in your wallet, and it grants you exposure to that position, right?
And that's the cool thing. It's a leveraged position is instantiated inside of a token. That's one of the cool new features of this one particular stability product, of which there are more.
Exactly. And the collateral here in this case is like USDC. There can be other collateral types. This is just a first, almost like a beta version or alpha version of all of the possible things. But you could see you can get some 3x tokamak exposure, Chainlink exposure to the euro, Aave. Keep that in mind. So what you're doing is you're actually tokenizing these positions. So when you were talking, David, about the composable nature of this, right? So think about how these different tokens can saturate all over the crypto space. The other cool thing here is, of course, I think I'm signed in. Yeah, this is signed in on Arbitrum. All right. So this is layer 2. This sort of thing would be cost prohibitive to anyone except a whale on the Ethereum mainnet, but Tracer's deployed it natively on layer 2, and I think they're going to deploy to other layer 2s down the road too. So like number one, with V1, why I'm particularly bullish is this is a project that ships, and they shipped on layer 2, and they're doing things the right way, and they care. Let's talk about why else we're bullish on kind of the long term, because the perpetuals products that we see today are just the start. I know Tracer is rolling out their V2, David, but the high level, if you pop the hood on this thing, what's actually being built here? Maybe we should talk about some of the factory contracts and like how this mechanism is set up and why it's permissionless.
Yeah, this is the part of the conversation that I love, because this is the one with metaphors. And so we have 3 other DeFi apps that I think are going to be useful to help people understand what Tracer is. And the first one comes to mind is Uniswap. So Uniswap actually isn't any one particular thing. Uniswap, every single Uniswap market is its own contract address on Ethereum. Like the Ether USDC Uniswap market is its own contract address, so its own marketplace. And then insert any Uniswap marketplace here. Like they all have their unique individual contract addresses for the Uniswap marketplace. And at the spawn of this whole thing is the Uniswap factory contract, which you can go and engage with and interact with to spawn a new Uniswap marketplace behind a new asset. So if you generate a new asset, you can go take that token address. You just minted a new token. You have that token address. You take it to the Uniswap factory contract. You input that contract address into the Uniswap factory, and you press the mint button, and out comes a new Uniswap marketplace for that one particular token. And so this is how Uniswap has really been able to answer to the long tail of crypto assets, because you can get day one liquidity on any asset in a permissionless fashion instantaneously. And so that's why there are so many Uniswap marketplaces out there, and that's why Uniswap is what it is. This is the same thing that Tracer is doing with DeFi perpetuals. And so kind of where like we were talking about how DYDX is like a little bit of a siloed, permissioned environment. Like you actually can't go to DYDX and mint your own contract. So if you have your own token, like DYDX actually doesn't help you with perpetuals or stability services.
You can't just spin up your own market the way you can on Uniswap.
Right, exactly. And so with Tracer's factory contracts, any token that exists can generate derivative marketplaces on its behalf, right? And so all you need is a token, or even not even a token, just a price feed. Sometimes you don't even need tokens, which is an oracle. Just an oracle, right? So like we can go into what that means. Some things I don't think will ever become tokenized on Ethereum, such as like Manhattan. But we can still make a price feed for Manhattan and start to trade that. And so that's its own rabbit hole. And so like that's the first mental model. Factory contracts allow for systems like Tracer or like Uniswap to, since anyone can mint a factory contract, we all have access to the same tools, and the marketplace of Ethereum, of greater DeFi, can always answer to the demand of its own industry, right? Like if the industry demands stability tools, it can go to Tracer and just make it. And so
that's why we compare it to Uniswap. That's why we say the Uniswap of derivatives. Right. What's the second?
Yeah, the other one that comes to mind is Rari Fuse Pools. I kind of already touched on this, where like Compound Finance has very specific assets that you can lend and very specific assets that you can borrow. And you can't really change Compound. In the same way you can't really change DYDX. But Rari fuse pools is a superset of compound, where because you can set the parameters of a Rari fuse pool as infinitely as you like, you can choose any assets to go in, you can choose any assets to be borrowed against, you can set your stability fees. You can actually recreate a compound money market using a Rari fuse pool by just copying the compound parameters, but you can also make any infinite number of other parameters as well using Rari fuse pools. So TracerDAO is kind of like that. It is actually limitless on the types of marketplaces that you can create, because all it is a system of factory contracts that accept inputs. And if you think that the market is going to find your inputs useful, you can go create that marketplace on Tracer.
Yeah, and what's cool about this is it's just like Rari in that, it's not dependent. The spinning up of these markets isn't dependent on governance. Like if you want to get a new sort of asset pair deployed in Compound, you need to go through the governance process. Same thing with Aave, right? And so it'll be like, oh yes, Compound just approved. This new asset can now be collateral. You can lend and borrow against this new asset.
It's permissioned, right? It's a little bit. Governance is permissioned.
It's governance permission. It's token vote permissioned. Rari says, well, no, the market can figure this out, right? And so we can make any pool to any degree of risk. And if capital can choose whether it goes into that pool or not, but anybody can create their pool. It doesn't have to be governance vote. Tracer does the exact same thing. So any perpetual pool can be created. It's not dictated by governance vote. And so this gives us the ability to go address the long tail of assets. Anyone can spin up a market any point in time and provide liquidity for that market as well. So that's pretty cool. Is there a third comparison here?
So all right, if there's no governance, then why does Tracer have a governance token? What are we actually governing over? So Tracer is not actually governing over the individual marketplaces. It governs over the factory contracts that mints the marketplaces, right? So it's like meta governance. It governs over the templates. What are the right templates for Tracer to allow people to use? And so it's not governing over the individual marketplaces. It's governing over the templates that create the individual marketplaces. And so this kind of makes it a little bit more like Yearn in my mind, where people come to Yearn and they submit strategies. Here's my yield maximization strategy. I submit it to Yearn governance, and then Yearn governance votes to include it in the Yearn protocol or not. And that's kind of the same model for TracerDAO. It's like people will come with their templates to TracerDAO. It's like, hey, I think this is a really good template to spin it to, and I think it will spawn 10, 100,000 individual marketplaces because this template is really, really good. Tracer governance will vote on whether they think that template is good or not. Perhaps just like Yearn, there is some incentive for the template creator who gets some sort of kickback for some of the fees that are generated by the templates. And then Tracer governance can weigh and measure those pros and cons, how much value goes to the DAO, how much value goes to the individual. But the point is, it allows innovation to, again, be exported out to the margins, and allows innovation to happen at the margins, and then Tracer just votes as to whether to bring that into the fold or not. And so these are the three kind of like DeFi app mental models that I've kind of used to understand Tracer. How does that land with you? How does that
I think it's great. So we got some Uniswap features, right? So it's like derivatives, Uniswap style. We also have some Rari type features. Anyone can spin up any market. So we address the long tail, and the market gets to decide rather than token vote. And we've got some Yearn innovation where it's, anyone can spin up one of these things. And if Tracer, the governance protocol, likes it, they can embed these features into a factory protocol. I think it's all of those things. Yeah. One other thing, I guess, to touch on the addressable market size of derivatives is absolutely massive. At some level, it dwarfs what Uniswap can do from a spot trading perspective, right? Something like the total addressable market size of derivatives in the world is in the quadrillions of dollars. That's just the high hundreds of trillions of dollars into the quadrillions of dollars. There's a lot of notional value that gets created by derivatives. And I feel like DeFi still hasn't found its killer app for derivatives, permissionless derivatives. DYDX is doing sort of more permission, one market at a time derivatives. But imagine the long tail of derivatives that we're going to create, David, when we get into the NFT world, when we get into the metaverse, right? So one product that Tracer is going to be putting out relatively soon is a way to get long, short, punk exposure. So what is the price index of a CryptoPunk? Well, it's the floor price. And all you have to do is basically create an oracle for the floor price of punks, put it into a tracer pool, and then bam, you've got some ability without buying a punk to get long or short exposure to punks, and fractionalized as well. I don't have to, spend $150,000 to get exposure to a punk. I could just put $1,000 in, go 3x long, and have some nice exposure to that punk that's sitting right behind you. Super cool, right? And this could happen to all derivatives, the entire metaverse. We're going to need not permissioned markets here. We're gonna need markets for like swords and video game items and collectibles and everything. And the market's gonna want to spin this up. So the total addressable market size of this is not just what we see in the traditional space, where we've got the hundreds of trillions of dollars as DeFi eats finance. That'll happen slowly, the real world. The big growth, I think, potential here is all of the new derivatives that are going to need to be created to stabilize risk and to give people hedging options in the metaverse. And how big is that market? I mean, we're bullish the metaverse. Like, we're bullish DeFi as a tool to help stabilize the metaverse. I think the answer to that is pretty damn big.
And so we actually just recently put out a doc that Ryan and I were working on the Tracer blog. And so we'll have that Tracer, that document that we're talking about linked in the show notes. And one of the things that we're learning about, we've learned about the team as we've engaged with them more and more and more, is they actually really, really care about using crypto DeFi tools to help the real world. And they are very interested in things like water markets or energy markets, because like I kind of think the 2020s are going to be increasingly chaotic, and so these stability tools can definitely apply themselves to the real world. But something that conversation that we've been trying to push the Tracer team into as we've engaged with them is like, the metaverse is actually going to come first, because the metaverse is actually going to be easier to access than the real world is for TracerDAO, because everything will be crypto native, inherently baked in on chain with no external dependencies. And so like the narrative that we're kind of like cooking up is like, well, the metaverse is going to be extremely chaotic. Like, it's already crazy. Just go look at crypto prices. Like, that's going to be kind of like the underlying foundation of the metaverse. And so the metaverse is just going to be this weird, chaotic place. And it's also going to start off really, really small. And so that's actually the perfect like testing ground for these types of products, TracerDAO, where like, okay, like it doesn't really matter if like CryptoPunks, like the CryptoPunk token like breaks, because it's just CryptoPunks. It's not water markets. It's not gasoline markets.
No
it's
one's
not
gonna
no
get
one,
hurt.
Yeah, no one's gonna lose their home because the CryptoPunk, the very early days of these whole like DeFi derivatives things breaks down. And so like the metaverse, stabilizing the metaverse is like the proving ground for TracerDAO. Like, if you can stabilize the metaverse, which is, right now, small market cap, but extremely chaotic. And slowly over time, the metaverse market cap will get larger and larger and larger, and then perhaps also become more and more stable because of things like TracerDAO. And the TracerDAO will be able to use the metaverse as this proving ground to say, hey, we can take what the lessons we've learned by stabilizing this increasingly chaotic place and start to apply it to the real world. And that's, again, one of the ethos about the team that I really, really enjoy and I feel very aligned with, is like, they're here to make the world a better place. First, they got to help out make this digital world exist. And then we can start to take some of the lessons we learned back to the real world and start to convince the crypto skeptics of the world that we actually have useful, viable tools that can improve the real world.
Dude, I think this is what DeFi is made to do, basically, right? So imagine, you know how everyone looking at crypto right now sees volatility. Everyone outside, they're just so volatile. What do we do? What if we could change that? What if we could actually export stability from crypto back to the real world?
Right.
That's what Tracer is doing. The other piece of this, why it aligns so much with the Bankless ethos, is perpetual markets, right? These very convoluted things, they used to be big and scary and difficult and only reserved for like the elite.
Right.
You had to be like an investment banker or pro trader to, construct these things, let alone trade them, right? Now we're democratizing access to the stability. So stability and risk management isn't just a tool for the elite, it's available for everyone. The other thing we should mention is some of the things that we've talked about here today aren't available at the time we're releasing this video, but they're actually coming in version 2, which is like less than 30 days out. I think version 2 is going to of Tracer is going to happen this month, and we'll include a link. Yeah, oops, Denver,
what?
leak. What's going to be new in Perpetuals V2? That's where the permissionless market deployment starts to come in. That's where you have the ability to hold some of these tokens longer term without getting wrecked. So like you can literally buy and hold an ETH, 3x. And while I was wrong on that trade in September, I'm betting I'm not going to be wrong 2 Septembers from now, David. And so if I just hold that piece in V2, if I hold that token in V2 in that position, I'm going to be doing okay, I'm pretty sure. Custom indices, there's some minimums on the market now that are going to be removed. So again, a project that ships, and V2, they're shipping a lot. There's one other thread I want to touch on, David.
Wait, I want to touch on the custom indices. Yeah, so I'm longtime listeners of both podcasts that I've been engaged with, Bankless and POV Crypto, will know that I came from the world of tokenized real estate, and that world has always been interested in like, how can we generate like markets for areas, right? Like how can I go long on Los Angeles and go short on Seattle? That's a losing trade, by the way. Or how can I like go long on 2-bedroom homes and go short on studios? Well, like custom indices with oracles is the solution to that, right?
It's
like
synthetics, right? We're not going to do it with real.
Yeah. We're not going to tokenize Los Angeles. Like it's not going to happen. Like it can't be done. But what's way more likely to happen is to just input price oracles. And they also have this fantastic, we don't have the time to go into it, but like they have an integration with Reputation DAO to make more robust, strong oracles. And so we can like, if you can produce a price feed on something, you can produce like risk management or just like trading tools on it. And so like the future of like going long the West Coast and shorting the East Coast, which is a winning trade, in my opinion.
What are you talking about, dude? You're getting ready to move to Brooklyn.
Just because my friends are there. Going long friends and going short enemies, like maybe that's even possible. But like literally like because it's just as simple as like taking in a price feed and plugging it into the factory contracts, you can produce derivative markets. It's like that really just allows innovation to explode. And I'm bullish on exploding innovation.
Oh yeah, as am I. This is a great thread. We'll leave it in the show notes from a community member who sees the potential here. SparkleCrimes. Get all my investment advice from Crypto Condom and SparkleCrimes. Anyway, some summary here. Putting my reputation on the line here. TCR is the most crazy good project I've come across since Tokamak. At 21 million market cap, this was a few days ago, so maybe not now, and 132 million fully diluted valuation is criminally undervalued right now. This thread goes through why exactly. Throws in some real estate sort of use cases, like the potential for someone to bet $100 on real estate prices going up and down for a particular street, city block, or suburb. Actual financial participation. It's really cool. How about mitigating the financial risk of a potential job loss by taking a portion of the moving average of a person's income as a derivative tokens and tracking that? Really cool. Some earlier use cases. Let's say you have some Tokamak as collateral and you want to bet on ETH settled in Tokamak. You can do that, right?
Or any other token. Bet on one token settled in a different token.
Exactly. A lot of reasons to be bullish here. We'll include that link in the show notes as well.
My favorite use case is like say you're a Metaverse grinder, right? And you are working in these play to earn games, and you spend like years grinding. Yeah, maybe Axie. Maybe you spend years grinding to find this super awesome, powerful sword, and that super awesome, powerful sword allows you to grind even more efficiently and generate income for yourself. But now all of a sudden you have like 3 years of your time locked up in this sword. And if this sword goes down in value, you like lose 3 years of your time. Well, you could take a price feed of that sword or swords of that category, plug them into Tracer, and hedge your risk about that sword depreciating in value, allowing you to get the capital income on that sword while being hedged against the value of that sword going down. Like crazy stuff like that is like what's on the table.
look, man, I think we've said all we need to say about Tracer. We're going to be watching this project earnestly, participating in this project as advisors. We're very excited to see this project grow as well. David, what else do you want to say before we sign off here?
Yeah, we'll include a link to the governance forums where Ryan and my's advisorship was considered and then eventually approved by the community, just for full transparency and disclosures there, if guys want to take a peek at that agreement.
You can also get involved in
almost on-chain agreements.
Yeah. Also get involved in the TracerDAO Discord. That's a great way to like find out more about the project and plug into the community. Feels very early stage, very formative. A lot of energy in there. Yeah, that's it, guys. This has been full disclosure. Full disclosure. David and I are bullish on Tracer the project. Take
Cheers.
care.